Good morning, friends. Uh, Today we are happy to have Mr. Pankaj Thakur, the co-founder of Paddock Ventures, with us to share the experiences of Paddock Ventures in designing and managing an accelerator program. And I'm happy to see the senior incubation managers joining at the early morning of the day, 9:30. We have planned this session, and today is a jam-packed session, even though it's a last day of our training program. It's between 9:30 to 12:30, and again, 3:30, we are meeting till 6:15 or so. 3 days in last 2 weeks, we have been discussing a lot about incubation and accelerators. And today, too, we'll have Paddock Ventures, Microsoft Accelerator, and from Canada, we have a speaker today evening. So based on the timings, time zone differences, we plan to have sessions in the morning and the evening. And happy to have Mr. Pankaj Thakur with us for today's morning session. I request our Vice President of ISBA, Dr. Balchandran, to introduce Pankaj Thakur to the participants. Over to you, Bala.
Good morning, everyone, and I'm happy to welcome Mr. Pankaj Thakur for this session. And he has 30 plus years of corporate and startup experience in his various C-level roles and founder of multiple startups globally. He has built, advised, and transformed both corporate and startup companies to become highly successful. In his past years, Pankaj worked with many reputed companies like HCL Limited, India Telecom Limited, Atlas Telecom Limited, Value First Media Limited. Pankaj has the most extensive experience in starting and ramping up new ventures, having done it twice before. He has created global startups like ConcealNet, based out of Silicon Valley, pioneering in Wi-Fi industry with its technology and infrastructure solution with businesses in US, Europe, Middle East, Asia, and recent company Cellcast Holdings Asia, based out of Cayman Islands and operations all over Asia. With this rich experience and expertise in this acceleration space, I'm sure that he's going to have an interesting session for us. And I'm also inviting all of you to take active interest in engaging with him through interactions. And in fact, a couple of weeks ago, through a Métis session, I had the opportunity to listen to him, and he has very, very interesting insights from the accelerator space. So thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. Pankaj, and over to you. The floor is yours.
Can't hear you anymore. Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Bala, and everybody else for inviting me here. And I hope I can give some different perspective. The reason being, I've been on both sides of the table. I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years approximately. I've done ventures globally, understand how the ventures are built. And the best part of my journey has been through failed ventures. So you learn a lot when you fail, and you are committed when you do the third time. You kind of make a list and say, this is what I'm not going to do. You make a conscious effort, and if you make that conscious effort third time around, the success comes around, and that's what happened. Another aspect that I want to tell you is that not necessarily all good entrepreneurs are good mentors or good. They can actually help other entrepreneurs. And that's why what I did was, after I sold my last company, I took about a year off, and I went to study various aspects of entrepreneurship, including the technology part of it, which unfortunately I'm not an engineer. I'm a mathematics honors student. So I'm more of a data analyst than anything else. But I had to learn on my job during HCL what technologies, and I practiced technology all those 20, 25 years that I've been around. And last 10 years, I've been actually trying to teach this, the mix of technology and entrepreneurship to various people and by mentoring them. I believe that teaching today has to actually turn on its head. It has to be more learning than actually teaching. And how do you inculcate learning is through something which is learning by doing. But helping entrepreneurs do things has made a lot of difference in their lives. And I have learned along. And now I think we have almost, we've put together a knowledge framework that can help startups actually, increase their survival rate. Most important is survival rate. And if they survive, then they can thrive. That's what we believe in. That's what we are seeing in the last 3 years that we're practicing this framework. So without actually doing much of, wasting much of time, let me get on to the job first. So this is done. Bala has already spoken about me, so I am not going to talk about it. Just that 1 year I spent in Harvard and MIT, it gave me a good handle on how do you actually help startups? What are the key elements that will help startups in actually succeeding? And with that, I experimented with 2-3 startups way back in 2013. And fortunately, I got some success out of it. There was a company called Byte, which was the first startup I mentored in 2013. And by 2015, December, we were able to sell that company for about, we had invested about maybe 70 lakhs or 80 lakhs, and we sold it for about 12 crores valuation. And that's where I think I got this hunch that we can take this whole mentorship and create a framework around that, and that's what we are trying to do. So let's go back a little bit and understand this whole acceleration part, which is very new to the world. Incubation has been around since 80s, but the acceleration part came in, I think, somewhere in 2005 or 2006. And there were these two companies called Reddit and Looped. Now, these are two companies which Y Combinator actually started incubating in 2005. And in 2012, Reddit was sold for $43 million. So you can see the journey was about 7-8 years. However, in the last 15 years, we can see there are many such accelerators who have come around. But the first one was Y Combinator. And the reason they succeeded was they were at it for a very long time. They did not give up. Initial success was not there. But midterm to long term, they saw success. And today it's valued, the Y Combinator itself is valued at something about $15 billion or so, even more. I don't know what's the latest is, but they are one of the, they are one of the unicorns, I would say that. And in less than 15 years, this model has been replicated, adopted, and developed in various ways by different accelerators. In Silicon Valley, you have Techstars, you have 500 startups, you have, I think you have maybe over globally about 1,000 accelerators who are currently trying to help startups and get them onto the next level. And there will be many more to come around. India itself is now getting populated with accelerator programs. So the difference between the incubators and accelerators: the accelerator is a program, and incubator is actually a provision, a helping or creating an infrastructure to help this. But acceleration there is a program. Acceleration is not a physical infrastructure. It's not an angel investment. It is nothing. It's basically a program that you run to help startup go from one stage to the other. And that mainly those stages are that they have developed something which the customers would actually appreciate, and that is what they need to take to the customers, validate it, and then try and sell it. And that period could be anything. And in India, we believe that period could be anything between 9 to 12 months. Anybody is offering less than that time frame is actually, may not be doing justice with the entire program. So when I was asked to do this, and since Bala had already, heard me in the Mighty, I had to make a desperate or a very actually intended effort to make it very different, this entire session. And I've tried to do that. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about is these are the first two companies that got accelerated in 2005, and by 2012, one of them was sold for, I think, $30 million, another for $15 million, something like that. So what is this acceleration program? And the most important part that you need to keep in mind when you're undertaking an acceleration program, how can you measure the success of a accelerator program? And I'm doing a reverse thing right now. I would have told you these are things to do, and hence you can measure the success. But I'm saying first you need to, like any other program, you need to keep in mind, or keep your focus on what could be the outcome. And that's what is missing in the Indian startup ecosystem, where incubators, accelerators, and anybody else for that matter are not really focusing on outcome. They're focusing on delivery. Delivery is important, of course, but outcome of the delivery is more important. And today you or me may not be measured by that. In tomorrow's world, we will be. And that's the beauty of somebody like Y Combinator, which is measured by outcome. How many companies got funded at seed level, at pre-series A, at series A, at series B, C? How many got exits? How many got IPOs? All this is going to be, something that people will actually look at when they decide whether your accelerator program is really something that it can be called a successful accelerator program. So the potential measures of an accelerator program could be the impact of startup ecosystem in the area it operates. One of the very important thing is the accelerator program has to be either a vertical specific or a geography specific. It could be anything. It could be a vertical specific. So you may take AI companies and do an accelerator program, or you could do an area and say this is the geography area of let's say any state, Maharashtra, and we're going to solve some local problems. And that is what actually helps them create a very focused group of startup which can show some success. What is the job creation it does? How many jobs does it create? And that is directly proportionate to the success of a startup. If the startup goes up to Series A or Series B, so I did Series B in my last company, and we were about 300 people. So we created 300 jobs, and that's a very, very good measure, because those 300 jobs actually, and IIT Kanpur has actually done a fantastic study, which is currently being submitted to DST, and DST is supposed to share that with everybody, where they're saying that startup ecosystem has actually created so many jobs and so much they have added to the economy. And this could be a notional number, but at least there is a number that you can talk about. The third thing that you need to look at, the number of startups that move up towards the external funding. Internal funding, I mean, a lot of incubators, accelerators depend on the grants, which is good. Grants are important for early stages of a company, especially deep tech companies or biotech companies or companies which are involved in technology driven startups, because it may take time. But at some point of time, they will have to get out of their comfort zone and raise some external money. And that external money could be one of the measures that you could be actually measured with, could be known for success or known for your partial success, let's say, or simply return on investment through the 5 years through exits. In 5 years, if you have spent, let's say, 10 crores in establishing an accelerator program or an incubator program, and in that 5 years you've had enough exits to actually show that you made money out of it, I think you or me have done a very, very good job. However, you also need to understand how do you yourself measure the effectiveness of the program. But this is something that the external, when people are looking from outside, are going to judge you from. But at your end, you need to understand how do you measure yourself. And one of the measures is how many startups are actually solving a real problem through innovation. And when I say innovation, I've said this earlier, and I keep repeating it, it's different from invention. A lot of us are actually focused on creating technology. But if those technologies are not put to good use, I don't know if you know this gentleman by the name of Joseph Schumpeter. Joseph Schumpeter is called the father of innovation. He very clearly in early 30s, and that has been actually endorsed by people, even people like Peter Drucker has actually endorsed his statement, where he says that invention is not innovation. Invention, if it is not brought to the larger use in the society and monetizing it, making some commercial benefit out of it, it is not innovation. So innovation has to demonstrate monetization of an invention. So we have to be very careful as incubators and accelerators that we focus on innovation, not invention. And invention can be solving any problem, right? It could be a problem that people think is a problem, but innovation is actually related to a real problem, because when you solve a real problem, there are people who are ready to pay for it. There are people who are willing and able to pay for it. And that is where innovation makes more sense than innovation. Innovation is something that can drive your economy exponentially, drive your economy, put it on a fast track. Look at Israel, I mean, small country, but they drive everything through innovation. They have invention, but they put that invention very successfully into the commercialization of it. How many startups demonstrate value to the customer? The value is measured today not by the features, not by the pricing. The value is measured by how effectively you solve a problem. How effectively you solve a problem better than it has been solved already. There is no problem that has been not solved right now, or not being solved as you try and solve it again. But if you solve it better, then only somebody is ready to pay for it. And that is where we need to focus on. As incubator and accelerator, we need to focus on how do you help this startup demonstrate the value that they create for their customers, so that there are paying customers. Commercial viability is the most important part. I mean, we may have, I have seen, and I've been part of many accelerator reviews and startup reviews, and what I've seen is that there are companies who spend years in developing products and services, where the same product and services could be, actually it may take long, there's no, I mean, I'm not denying that, but while you are developing a product, testing it out at various phases with the customers and trying to get their feedback could be very, very important, because that will simultaneously give you the insight into commercial viability of the product. So the startup's ability to commercially make it viable for the customer is very, very important, and that's where the whole the whole concept of a team comes into the play. There are good technology people, but if there is not a good mix of talent in a team, then complementary skills in the team, then you will have this. So you have to look at the startup as a whole, not as a founder, not as an idea, not as this thing. So you have to focus on, as I keep saying, it's the company that is more important than the idea itself. Idea has no meaning. It's the company, it's the people around who are building that idea into something that could be used by people at large. How many startups graduate from the program? I mean, one of the metrics that we actually really care about is how many people are actually going out, and that's why we in at least our program is graded. If you're not scoring more than 75%, you don't even need the investor. If you're scoring more than 50%, you still have a chance and you can extend your programs. But if you're scoring less than 50%, then something wrong with the whole innovation or the idea or the problem you're solving. That means it is not really coming up to the level that investors will actually write a check for. And hence, it is important that how many people graduate. So have programs that can very clearly identify the startups on certain data points. And those data points should culminate into at least 75%, 80% achievement, at least on the paper, if nothing else. And that could be presented to some people who are actually ready to look at it. And ultimately, how many startups are able to attract external investors? And external investors, I think this is a notion that you have 4, 5, 6. No, I think you need to have 20, 25 investors around your incubator or accelerator to get them, because various incubator accelerators have a different, thesis of investment. And there are individuals, there are large, angel investors. They could write a single check of 25 lakhs, and that could be good for a startup. So you need to have a large group of external investors encompassing you, so that when these startups present to them, somebody is able to appreciate, if not one, maybe two, maybe if there are 50 people 25 people that you have, maybe 5 people will appreciate it. But because that's the way this whole ecosystem works, it's all subjective. Likes and dislikes, appreciation, non-appreciation is all subjective. Subjective to how you appreciate the problem, how you appreciate the innovation, how you look at the team, and how sometimes at the initial level, acceleration program normally is culminates on angel seed funding. If angel and seed funding people are able to see that they can actually contribute and they can actually support or they can add value to the startups, they're ready to take even higher risk. And that's very important. Now, from the startup perspective, what is the measure that you want to take? They want to, today's, fortunately for all of us, I mean, a lot of people would say unfortunately, but I'm saying fortunately because they want to work remotely and they want to work on their own time. Accelerator startup physical model has this problem, people coming in night, going in the night, not coming there, people, doing things which are not acceptable in an office environment. But startups are startups. I've seen, in fact, when YouTube was getting built, I had seen they used to work under a staircase in Sequoia's office in Palo Alto, and they chose that because they said, we don't want a room, we will come. They would come at 3 in the afternoon and work till 4 next day, 4 in the morning. And 6 months they worked under the staircase. There were 3 benches there, and all these founders used to work from there because they didn't want to get those. They didn't want to get. So I think this is a good thing that people are ready to work from home, right? And the programs that give startups their idea a shape of innovation, or at least innovation is getting built into them, that is what they are looking for. They are looking for opportunities to connect with the customers and investors. Every time a startup walks into my door, they are looking for investors. They're not looking for anything else. Sir, how can you raise money for me? How can I raise money with your help? And I have to tell them, if you have business sale, which is a viable business, investors are not, investors are, hundreds of them are ready to write a check for you. But first, get business, get customers. And that's what they're looking for. To get access to effective mentors. I'm one example that because I did not have mentors, I have two failed ventures. But in the third one, at least I had a mentor who could guide me, who could tell me, who could connect me to the investors. So I did my venture in, it failed, but I had a mentor there who actually mentored me later on also. And he opened doors. I knocked 55 VCs before I saw my first investment in Silicon Valley. So you need mentors to connect to the ecosystem. Otherwise, how will you do it? And mentors are also people who are like this drone over on top of you. They have a wider view. And since they have a wider view, they can see the things coming up. They can see what is happening, what is going to happen, and they can actually advise. So access to mentors, right? Entrepreneurial coaching. Now, after I sold my company, I went to MIT. I studied entrepreneurship under Professor Bilal. And I studied because I wanted to understand, what did I do right? How do I connect the dots? Which should come first and which should come second? How do I create that value chain where I can actually help startups go seamlessly from one end to the other and from that to the next end? They have to go hop, stop, and jump. Now, how do I help them? And that's why I went there and I learned that entrepreneurship can actually be learned. There's a coaching that you can get for entrepreneurship. Receive initial funding. Funding is all about evidence. You need to provide some real evidence to the investor that this particular venture is workable, it has a future, and it can connect. It can actually last for 7 to 10 years somehow, because you're solving a real problem. That problem is going to persist. The problem has high intensity, frequency, and the problem has been persisting for so long, it's never going to go, it's never going to end. And if the problem is never going to end, people will look for solution, and my solution is the best. If that's the story you have, the initial funding is always available, and that's what we need to help the startups with. The benefits of the Accelerator program. Now, the benefits that you can offer are these benefits, right? These are benefits that you get, and then you connect it to the external world, is what the Accelerator's job is. Accelerator's job is not to make money with themselves, but their first job is to provide opportunity for the external investor who are looking for talent and who are looking for filtered talent or curated startups, right? The potential to build a pipeline of investors, right? That is where I think you can attract lots and lots of attention. If you have the ability to build some investable companies through a very compelling program, the investors is not an issue at all. The chance to invest smaller amounts of money, now that's something that you as an accelerator can do. If you're an accelerator, you have a fund, access to funds, the chance of you, because all accelerators are also businesses, they have to show ROI. If they don't have return on investment, then they're not going to last for very long. And that goes with us, that goes with me, you, everybody else in the ecosystem. And that can only happen if we amplify our efforts. Our efforts could be getting a good company out. But if that good company out doesn't give many returns to us, then how are we going to survive for long term? Not on grants all the time, right? You may have a 5-year horizon where you may get grants from Atal Innovation Mission, or you may get from TBI. But what happens beyond that? This is not a game. This is not a short-term game. This is a long-term phenomena, right? The chance to provide hands-on support, guidance, information. I mean, this is the most critical part. Startups don't realize it. I mean, unless and until people fall sick, they don't go to a doctor. But smart people are the ones who actually regularly go to doctor, consult their doctors, and actually keep checking on their health. And this is exactly what we need to do with the startups. We need to tell them, we as an accelerator are offering you an opportunity to get hands-on support. There are mentors with us who will help you. And if they are going to do that, then they're going to take that from us, then their chances of success is much higher. The prospect of creating economies of scale for angel investors. I mean, angel investors, where do they go, right? They have, of course, there are a lot of them who have good connectivity into ecosystem, startup ecosystem. But if they're connected to the good accelerators, they don't have to go and make that large effort. They periodically connect with you, periodically interact with you, and they get curated startup. That's what they're getting. So for them, economies of scale for their angel investment is very, very important. Now, the next section I'm going to take a little more while, primarily because this is the 9th step of setting up a real effective accelerator program. The first step is you need to define your mission. What is the mission? And each cohort that you do could have a different mission. Always remember, startups happen in cohort. Acceleration program happens in cohort. Acceleration program is not for one startup, is not for this thing. You need to periodically do it, because the startups which need to go to market, startups which need to go and connect with the customers, that need is actually often coming periodically. So you need to create accelerator programs at least once in a year or twice in a year. My preference would be twice in a year. But to do that, you need to set up your mission. Each time you go out there, you must know what is it that you want to do. What are the unmet need that your accelerator would solve? Unmet needs in the sense, what is it that the startups are looking for, and what are the problems that are not getting solved? That is you need to create a platform which matches the two. Pick up the problems that nobody is solving. Pick up the problems that needs to be solved, maybe by multiple people, and then find the startups who can do that. So you need to have a mission for every cohort, right? And also keep looking around who else is doing it. And I think this is where the collaborative effort between various incubators should work. Because if there are cohorts, and if you have a couple of companies and you can't create a cohort of your own, make sure that they are participating in some other cohort. Because let's say if I am doing an AI cohort, AI healthcare cohort. Now, AI healthcare cohort could be multiple. You could do AI healthcare cohort, which could be towards the healthcare equipment. You could do towards towards creating formulations, and so on and so forth. So there could be many, many cohorts that you can create within that. And each accelerator can have their own strength to do that. The second thing, what vertical will you focus on? What is the vertical focus that you have? Where are your mentors actually can help you? Where are the startups which are more affiliated to a certain kind of vertical? What will be and how will you connect them to the investors? You could be driven by 3 things: by the problem statements that you can solve, you could be driven by the startups that you have access to, and third, what kind of investors do you have and what is their vertical focus? So you could have a combination of 3. You could have a combination of 2, or you could have a single focus combination that I have investors who are asking me for this. So at various times, you can create various cohorts. Third thing, how will you recruit startups? Now, this is something that it's all, not a good saying, but garbage in, garbage out. It's you get the best of the startups, you get them, you have the opportunity of get them funded at very, very early stage. But if you do not get them, you have to do a heavy lifting. You have to work hard with them, right? And that could affect your entire process of the cohort. That means the cohort may take longer than you thought. So if you take biotech, for example, normally a biotech cohort would take at least a year. It cannot be less than a year because the entire process is so so deep that you have to wait for that, right? And then what channels will you actually create for your program to get known, right? You need to have lots and lots of partners around to promote your program. And it is very important that a platform like ISBA can create a single platform which can connect. It can be as powerful as NASCOM. It could be as powerful as Invest India, because ISBA's job is to help. I'm assuming ISBA's job is to help the incubators and accelerators, and hence directly or indirectly they're also helping the startups. So having a common pool where you can reach out through ISBA could be a very good example, right? How can you communicate clearly? How can you effectively communicate? These are some of the things that you need to keep in mind while you're recruiting the startups. Next, what is the selection criteria? Now, my way of, so everybody can create a scorecard of their own, and scorecard means you create data points. You create data points. You have to say 1, 2, 3, 4. Normally, I've seen when you go for a review session, you have 5, 6. Articulation, the team. These are very definite thing. But you could create more data points, right? Is this company, is there, you can say large market, but what is the low hanging for them? Because that's where they will start from. If people don't know where is the low hanging, they can actually, go all over the place. They can spread themselves thin and wide and gain nothing out of it. So important is that your selection criteria should be driven through some data points, and minimum 25 data points. That's what I recommend. You have 25 data points. Each startup should be evaluated on that. You may have a smaller cohort of 10, doesn't matter. It's not a game of numbers. It's not a quantitative thing. It's a qualitative thing that you're doing. So be very focused on how you evaluate your startups. Take help. Reach out to people from domain. What do they think? But at the same time, there's a lot of hunch that gets involved in selecting a startup, and that's very, very important. What is the structure of the program? I mean, how do you, I've been doing this last 2-3 years, and first cohort we took, there are companies who've been into 3 years of the making, and they have created the prototype and they want to go to market. That could be one kind of company, right? The other company would be. But at the end of the day, I think you can create a common framework for all companies which need to go into the market. So connecting to the market and taking them and actually making them commercially viable could be one program. The other program could be to take them, once they have done that, take them, and I will talk about our programs and you'll see how we have structured that. The second program could be after that. So you could have multiple programs in an accelerator program. You cannot say that I have only 1-2 months program and after that they're gone. No, every startup needs hand-holding for at least 12 to 15 months. It's really the way you incubate a child. Till 2 years, you need to be around that child he doesn't run into the walls and the furniture and doesn't throw things here and there. You need to be guarding them. It has to be a wall-garden approach for startups for next at least 9 to 12 months or even extended to 18 months. So important is, what is the program structure? What is the source of funds? I know many of us are dependent on the government grants from TBI, from Atal Innovation Mission, from BIRAC and this and that. But I think important also is to look out for CSR grants. Look out for, creating your own sponsor programs. I mean, all of us are sitting in some city, at least tier 1, tier 2, or maybe tier 3. All these tier 1, tier 2, 3 cities have some kind of ecosystem where there are a lot of businesses who are thriving. Why those businesses cannot be part of your sponsorship? If they can sponsor small things here and there, they can sponsor cultural programs. Why can't they sponsor one of the cohorts? Maybe partially sponsor it. Maybe sponsor one part of it. Slice and dice your programs in a way that, okay, I have a program of 3 months. This will be sponsored by this. Next 3 months will be sponsored by this. The next 3 months will be sponsored by this. And next 3 months. You could do a lot of things. These are all marketing things that you need to learn. As a head of accelerator program, you are not you're not a technology head. You're primarily a business head, and you need to think like a business, and that's very important. So what is the source of funds? There could be multiple sources of funds. What ecosystem we're building? I mean, small places like Raipur, small places like, I've been to a place like Jabalpur. They are trying to build an ecosystem there. And when I talked about them, what was missing was they have not connected. It has Jabalpur has some of the best education institutions in the country. I remember my parents' time, they used to talk Jabalpur like it could be compared to a very good hub like Allahabad. Allahabad is another one, right? But there's nothing connected. Those ecosystems are not connected. And I asked one of the professors there, she was the head of a department, I said, how many PhDs do you do? She said, we do approximately 300 PhDs every year. 300 PhDs. And what is the startup ecosystem there? Maybe 20, 25. I mean, that's a huge disconnect. In fact, I remember I was in San Diego once and I met the UC San Diego head of innovation. And she told me it took her 7 years to get the entire industry acknowledge that UC San Diego can be the hub for that, for innovation. And who doesn't need innovation? Everybody needs innovation, whether it's government, whether it's private, or whether it's small companies. Everybody needs innovation. And why can't you or me be the hub of that innovation by going around in the local area and trying to connect people and getting them to understand what innovation can do for them? So it starts with ecosystem building, starts with educating people in your local area, and then educating them, then interacting with them, and then getting them to participate. Everybody wants to participate. It's just there is nobody reaching out to them. So please do that. Post-program support. I can tell you one incubator, which is my favorite, is KIIT Bhubaneswar. And I would say they're a little bit lucky also. Bhubaneswar saw this lot of reverse migration happening from Bangalore to Bhubaneswar. Why did it happen? Because Bhubaneswar, historically has a lot of good technology people, and they all moved to Bangalore. But when they realized Bangalore is not so forthcoming for them from the expenses point of view, from the everything point of view, and plus we are still the country which needs the family unit to be together. Parents are getting old. There's a house available there, and then Infosys, Wipro, everybody shifted, had their campuses there. A lot of reverse migration happened. In that reverse migration, KIIT was able to actually get their alumni to come in and speak to them. And then it started. Today, KIIT is actually providing support to all alumni of KIIT and trying to get them. Now, that's not a typically program support, but that could be the program support that PhDs may need. That could be the program support that a lot of people who are into research, they need. And that program, and post that, connect them to people who have gone. So I was in Bhubaneswar recently, before this COVID, and we are trying to put a center of excellence there. And guess what? Who's the chief mentor? Chief mentor of that is a very, very successful entrepreneur from Silicon Valley who's ready to mentor the entire cohort in Bhubaneswar remotely. He was ready to do that. Anyway, now he has to do remotely. But the alumni of KIIT was ready to actually mentor the companies which are in the campus. Now, this is something great. Plus, IITs have shown us time and again. IMA is now doing that. They have put an impact fund together. You can actually create small funds. Creating a fund, a cohort needs maybe 10 to 12 companies, maybe 15 companies. If the 10 companies means even if you're giving them 25 lakhs each, 2.25 crores. I know it may sound a lot of money, but if you try and reach out to alumni, when you say, okay, we're going to create an angel network in alumni, why not? So there are ways to do it. People have to think in those directions. Evaluating performance. And as I said, your performance can be tracked. That was the first slide I did. These are the 9 steps you need to create, have to create an effective accelerator program. But then the question is, why do, globally, it's not India only, globally, why do startups fail? And we need to analyze that. All that is fine, but we also need to analyze why do they fail. And some of you who have attended Mighty program may go through this, but I've given a slight more, a different angle to it, because I believe this is a forum which needs to understand this in more outcome-driven ways rather than delivery-driven ways. Okay, the startup fail primarily because there is no mentoring, and mentoring in this country has been a dark. So when I was starting up, I went to a lot of people and asked them, "What do I do?" And I was working with HCL, and I had decided to quit. But then, one of my mentors, who was actually my boss that time, said, "Don't quit now. Go and work from, create some bank balance for yourself, and then do it." And that's exactly what I did. But that was just a personal mentoring, and that's the mentoring available most of the time. Business mentoring is just not available. And the reason for that is to do startup, it's a very different way of doing it. It is not the same way that everybody did. I mean, today, if I tell the way I built my last company and sold it, every company has to be built that way, then I am wrong. And that's what happens. Mentoring has become very ad hoc and very unscientific. Otherwise, it can be done in a very structured manner. So what happens? There is no validation. So everybody comes, I love your idea. Who cares if you love my idea? Is customer going to pay for this idea? That's what I want to hear. But no, people will tell you, yes, I love this idea, try it out. Why try it out? Why not go and validate it first, right? There is no innovation in technology and business model. Innovation today is considered as a little bit of difference from here. How am I different than that guy? So he's not doing this, I am doing this. That's not innovation. Innovation is not incremental changes in product and services. Innovation is substantial difference between the status quo and what is going to happen once you step into it. And that is the major innovation that people have to drive. There is no mentoring guidance. I keep saying this, and I feel sad about it. And there is no funding. No funding primarily because there is no mentoring. Trust me, if you can mentor people, if you get good mentors for your startups, they can find investors without an issue. Because what will mentor do is help them build a very compelling business proposition. And that's what investors are looking for. And here is some data to back my truth, right? If you look at this two charts, both done by two different areas. This is the second one is IBM, the first one is CB Insight. The two real problems are, one, we do not have mentors who help us do customer-centric things. Important is customer. If we keep the customer in the middle, then everything else can get sorted out because he or she is the one who's going to pay for it. He or she is who's having that pain because nobody has a solution for that pain. So people end up doing where there is no market need or without a business model, or it's a completely unfriendly product. I mean, the customer says, what the hell is this? I don't like this, right? Ignore the customers. And why does that happen? Because people ignore the customers. And product are mistime. Mistime means you're trying to force the need on the customers instead of actually solving their needs. Solution is, and this is, I believe, is the only way to do it. And trust me, I have been an entrepreneur, and I'm not only practicing what I'm saying, but I've been practicing very successfully. In the end of the program, you'll see the stats that will tell you, right? A mentor-driven program that is defined by outcomes. That's it. Outcome, you have very clear defined outcomes of a program that can give you, and the final outcome is funding. Without that, you will not even be able to get startups. So if you communicate to a startup, I'm going to give you everything, but funding is God, Ram Bharose, it's not going to happen. So how do you do that? You actually try and augment the innovation of startups by providing them a framework that will help them start. How do you start? You have an idea should solve a problem. That problem should get validated from a customer interaction, and then you create a product. You create a product, you sell it, you survive. You sell it to a lot of people, you make a sustainable business. And then you want to capture you want to be the leader in the space. That's called scalability. And a new venture while pursuing the unique and the same time, that program should maintain the individual identity. That means it should be customized for everybody. This is the trick. The trick is to create a framework that helps them do everything, but at the same time, it is customized for them. A lot of people think it cannot be done, but trust me, it can be done. We've been doing this for the last 3 years, and I've learned this from the best in the world, how to do it. Mentoring works as catalyst. This is one example. The percentage of companies that actually are top performers because of mentors, right? That increases the company's odds to success. The benefit of mentorship are limited to entrepreneurship, but it is also, personal growth, and it helps also get funding. Here is the chart which very clearly says people who had mentors, the funding was the green line, and the people who did not have funding, that's where they went. So mentoring is very, very important for funding. Because of mentoring, they got funding. Because they did not have mentors, the funding did not happen. But important part is now you want to help, you want to become a mentor. You yourself need to be a mentor. All these CEOs and senior executives of incubators and accelerators should be the mentors first. They need to be mentors first and CEO next, because they need to understand what the startup needs. But then you also need to understand what is entrepreneurship. And the way I define entrepreneurship is art, science, and practice of it. And this has been confirmed by Harvard, by, name it. All of them have definition which is structured around this. It's people plus process and the practice of that process. So art is actually something that comes from the entrepreneur. So the art is the vision, the passion, the attitude, the value, the innovator, the perseverance, the self-motivation, the leadership, the experience, the focus. All this is part. This is the data points they need to have when you're evaluating a founder. That's what entrepreneur brings to the table. I'm not saying they should have all of that, right? They may have maybe 50% of it, but if they have only one or two, I'm passionate. So Professor Vadhwa, who's a very, very good professor of entrepreneurship, he always says, if you're an entrepreneur, keep your passion home. And the reason he says is there is a very thin line between passion and obsession. Your passion turning into obsession means you're blinded. You're completely blinded by not even outcomes. You're completely blinded by your self engrossed thinking, which may not be true. So you need to keep your passion out, and you need to be an entrepreneur. However, the science of entrepreneurship, that comes through the process, the knowledge, the skills. They may have, they may not have, but you need to ensure that they have the top skills. The team, the strategy, the network, the technology, the solutions, the product. That's what you and me bring to the table. We may not bring all of them, but most of it. Skills, team may be coming with the founders, but the strategy, network, technology, solution, product, all this needs help. All this needs a process. All this needs a way of developing it. That's why we have in companies, large companies, we have product managers, we have marketing managers, we have product marketing managers, we have product development managers. You have all kinds of people. Why? Because each one of them is specializing. In a startup environment, you don't have that. But as a mentor, you can provide all that. And that's why you have business mentors, and then you have domain mentors. And you need to have a good combination of this in your accelerator program, or in your incubator at least, so that they can be provided, this can be provided on demand. First, you put a program that gives this, all this, and after the program is over, when they're practicing it, they need help. How do you get the help? You actually attach mentors to them, the business mentors and domain mentors. And the practice of this comes through a monitoring. You monitor their execution, their leadership, their growth, their corporate governance, and their ability to bounce back. All that comes from the business mentors and the CEOs of incubators. And the rest comes from the business mentors. But important is, we monitor them. Monitor does not mean that we are on their case all the time. Hey, what did you do? Hey, what did you know? There is a structure to the whole program. Every month you come, let's meet for a couple of hours, 3-4 hours. Here is a format where you actually fill in your progress and define your tasks for next 1 month. Or you may decide to meet once in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever time frame. But that time frame needs to be disciplined, and that time frame needs to be followed very religiously. If you follow that, then you get what you need, which is the practice of it. But important is monitor. That helps them create the discipline as an entrepreneur or as a executive when they go. I mean, tomorrow when an external investor come in and he starts asking for reports, where the hell is this person going to get it? He doesn't know how to do it. So you, as incubator CEOs or accelerator CEOs, need to have that part of the program. So entrepreneurship is art, science, and practice, and it can be learned. For example, science and practice can come from the business mentors and domain mentors, whereas entrepreneurship comes from the art comes from entrepreneurs. However, the practice has to come from the incubator CEO. So you can see it's a very cohesive effort from all stakeholders. It is not one person's job. It is not your only job. It is the mentor's not only job. It's not only entrepreneur's job. It's a cohesive effort. That's how we're going to change the way Indian startup ecosystem is going to change. Is going to behave. And hence I say entrepreneurship is a craft that can be learned. The three things in the craft is it has a person who has some creative abilities, right? It has a process that tells him how to learn, and then he or she practices. The sciences are well defined and deterministic. Art is just the opposite. Art comes from within, it gets inspired, right? Art is always an inspiration. It is not something people think art is something, creativity is something that people are born with. No, people are not born with creativity. It's something that gets inspired. And entrepreneurship is a craft that sits between the two, and it holds the two and helps them make it. And so some of the qualities of the craft, or some of the features of the crafts are it's accessible. That means anybody and anyone can learn it. All crafts can be learned by all of us. Second part of the craft is it's learnable. Craft has to be learnable. That is how it gets passed on from one generation to the other, or from one person to the other, right? Third, it's unique in its value. The value that it creates is very, very unique. Every person who creates, let's say a potter, I've shown you a picture of a potter. When every potter creates a pot, his pot or her pot is going to be different. So it's unique in every sense. So everybody gives its own touch. It's built on fundamental concepts, right? You can take pottery, for example, again. It's built on fundamental. You need to have certain kind of clay. It needs to have certain amount of moisture. It needs to be done in a certain way. It needs patience. It needs practice, and it needs to be done. It's all doing. There is nothing. There's no planning there. You can have it in your mind, but ultimately you end up doing it. With a combination of your brain and your hands, and that's what his craft is about, right? Sorry, I just need one more. So, and it is best learned through apprenticeship. So you need to have a mentor to teach you a craft. Now, we as PADUP have given acceleration a different meaning altogether, and we believe by mentoring you can accelerate somebody's growth, you can accelerate their value creation, you can accelerate their possibility of going to the market and creating value for their customers. It can be all. And by mentoring and educating, training, our mentorship means you have to educate, you have to train, you have to coach, you have to handhold. It seems like a lot of work, but if you do it in a structured format, it's not that much of a work, right? The first thing you do is you position their idea and the viability of its idea and establish the viability of its idea. Then you educate them on what they need to know. Important is a lot of startups come with a lot of baggage. And today, the stories around entrepreneurship has become the gospel. That's the knowledge people have. Oh, that guy did. That's not what it is. What made that person or that particular enterprise is more important. So the education, unlearn to learn, what we call. We help them unlearn to learn. Unlearn everything. Give them facts. Tell them Mark Zuckerberg was not a whiz kid in his this thing. He went there. He actually created something, and he had a mentor called Sean. So there is a structure to the whole thing. It did not happen on its own. help them connect the dots. Most of the time, and this is what I also did when I was an entrepreneur, hit and trial, hit and trial, hit and trial. Why should they do hit and trial? There's so much of knowledge available how to do entrepreneurship. Why can't they just do it in a structured format? And that structured format is what we call the acceleration program. And then bring their product and services to the market. Very, very, very important. Most of the people I've seen, so there are multiple kind of startups, but two major kinds that I'll talk about here is one which are driven by technology. So they always feel the technology push is the way to create a startup. Where we all know it's the technology pull that actually creates a startup, or a customer pull that creates a startup. The large startups are created by the customers, by large amount of customers, not by technology push, right? At the same time, there are people who are sales driven. They always try and go and sell first, without even creating any value, without even creating product, without even understanding what a customer needs. They are just in sales mode all the time. A combination of two makes a lot of difference. Connecting the dots is what we need to do. And last but not the least, by being a partner in their journey. We are not going to enforce ourselves onto them. We are like coaches, basketball coaches. And I give basketball coaches because that's the most intense game I've seen. Basketball coach, what he or she does is he makes them practice like nobody's business. He tells them all the nuances of the game, right? But when the game is on, he's on the sideline. And there comes a time when there is a difference of 3 points or 2 points between winning and losing. If you make 2, you draw. If you make 3, you win. And if you don't, you lose. And there is a 3-pointer that some player is actually doing. So the coach, what he does, he just takes a timeout and says, come out, guys, this is how we need to do. We need 3-pointers, we do. Option is yours. You decide whether you want to take 3-pointers. But here is what I'm going to tell you. If you make 2-pointer, it's fine because we'll actually go into the next game and we'll win that game. Idea is to win the tournament. Idea is not to win this single game only. If we can win, great. So the choice of making the 3-pointer is yours. And that's the coach you are. That's the mentor you are. You are the mentor who will tell them, these are the choices you make. You make the choice. I'm going to stand by you whether you succeed or fail. And guess what? That player takes a 3-pointer shot. It flies off the board. 0 point. They lose. They're still clapping. They come out, go into the locker room, right? Nobody ridicules that guy. Failure is not to be ridiculed. They prepare for the next one. And this is how a startup has to be created. How do we do this? What are the tools we have? The first tool we have is we created a boot camp to validate these startups' viability of the idea or their proposition, whatever they bring to. We help them validate through a boot camp. Next, we do master classes to educate them on various aspects. It is such a amazing thing that when people, when the startups are actually going, let's say in their 6th or 7th month, they think that they know it all. And they suddenly know, oh my God, this is what I don't know. What do I do? And as a mentor, you already know that he's going to come back to you and do that. And then you have, so what we did was we created those master classes for them. And those master classes are regular intervention where they keep learning one A, B, C, D, E. I'll tell you more about it. Workshops, you create workshops for them. Build ecosystem for them, open doors for them, create partnerships for them, introduce them to these C-level guys, open your Rolodex, open your network for them. This is what a mentor's job is. And on demand. You are available to them. I know a guy, the 2 founders fought. Okay, classical case. Fought. The first one founder, he was a little more aggressive. He went to the police and complained to the police that this guy has taken all the money and gone. Now, this fellow, and his father was some executive director in one of the public sector companies. He called me up, Mr. Mentor, this is what the problem is. The police is sitting in my drawing room. So I spoke to the police guys and I said, look, they fought and it will get sorted out in the next 48 hours. The police guy says, करा दो सर 48 घंटे में नहीं तो हमको इसको arrest करना पड़ेगा. In next 48 hours, I sat down with one guy separately, sat down with the other guy separately, and got it sorted out in next 24 hours. So you have to be on demand available because they look at you not only from a business mentor point of view, as somebody who's going to help them beyond that. So a mentor has to be available on demand for almost everything. A startup is like living a new life. And you being part of the new life, you're a partner in that life. So be ready to do that. But hey, this is the fact. Startup says idea is equal to funding. And I face this every day. And I take really good time to explain to them it's not about funding. Some of them understand, some of them don't. And people who don't understand, they opt out of the programs. I never see them. And some of them, there's a very small fraction which actually takes their idea and get funding also. So it's not that they're all wrong. I'm saying, but this is what it is. But end of the day, it's not. Idea is not funding. Idea is not funding. Funding needs evidence. Evidence that you are a team that people can depend upon. It means you have a mindset of an entrepreneur. When I said unlearn to learn, you need to make sure that they have that. They're solving a real problem. They're solving with innovation. They're solving with innovation, and there is a roadmap to the innovation. It has to be an innovation that actually goes throughout their journey. There's a value that they actually create and are able to demonstrate that value. There's a business model which helps them transition from their ownership to the other ownership. A business model, what it does is it smoothens the transition between two parties, and they need to create that. Based on the business model, they should create a business plan at least for 12 to 24 months or 8, 20 or 36 months and tell this all the above as a story. If they're able to build a compelling story, trust me, there are enough people to write checks. So what we did was we created methodology. Now this is me. I have to sell myself also, right? That's what I do. So we created partnership with incubators and accelerators to accelerate, and we call it Boot Up. It's a 14 weeks program that helps a startup to go from idea to investment. And we have done this 6 times in the last 1.5 to 2 years. And this year, actually, I am currently on the verge of taking 4 simultaneous programs that I'm going to do. These are all Boot Up programs. And from Boot Up, we then take them to what we call Rev Up. Rev Up is 9 to 12 months. Idea is when they get the first check, it should not be that check, they get check and they start splashing it around. Idea is to preserve that check, preserve resources, and extend them as long as they can. And that's the mentorship level 2. That's where the master classes come in. That's where the coaching comes in. That's where the workshop comes in. That's where the monitoring comes in. First 14 weeks is like a roller coaster ride. They will go through that 14 weeks, and in the 14 weeks, they will either get a check or not get a check. If they get a check, you need to handhold them further. Because that check should last them for a pre-series A, 9 to 12 months. In that 9 to 12 months, they should be able to demonstrate something which could connect them to a further funding. And what we do is, each time we take them to Rev Up, it's customized. Everything is customized. Even after Boot Up, what comes out as a business plan is not the same business plan for all 15 startups. It's each startup gets a different business plan, their own business plan, which they presented to the investors. And that's the trick of this program. That's the magic of this program, that actually helps build everyone a customized business model and business plan for themselves. So here is some insight into what we do. 14-week program, it's a validation, customer development, innovation, business model, sustainable business plan, and get invested. That's what the aim of this. Now, what is the outcome? The outcome of this is they get a qualified problem statement, they get customer validation through a primary market research, they get market and opportunity size up, they get innovative solution, they quantify their value proposition. Quantify, not only identify, but quantify. They get a business model that has a pricing structure. They go to market. Strategy is very clear. This is how I'm going to go. This is my low hanging. This is how I enter market. This is how I expand market. In 3 years, I reach so many customers. And a smart pitch. Smart is specific, specific to their idea, right? It's a measurable. What is the outcome going to be of their idea? It's attainable. That means it is not something that I'm going to build a rocket, spaceship in next 12 months, right? It's attainable. It's relevant to the customer, and it's time bound. In next 12 months, this is what I'm going to do, and that is what I need your check for. And then they meet the investors. Validation and verification is must for angel investment. Angel investment happens because of, so the first 14 weeks, we help them do that. Next 9 months is where the game gets to the next level. It goes into what we call rev up. It's education, coaching, and education is action education. It's all learning by doing. There's nothing classroom. Masterclass is actually a class where they are doing something. There's workshops, there's training, there's hands-on mentoring, there's a task monitoring, and getting invested again. In 12 months' time, if a startup is good, in next 12 months' time, he's not going to be satisfied that first check he got of 25, 50 lakhs. He needs another 1.5, 2 crores. How do you get that? You get that by taking him through that process. What does he do in that 12 months? He actually builds an MVP. He actually creates a network effects in their platforms and services. He gets a well-defined sales process that has a real market penetration, go-to-market strategy with implementation and tweak. So the 14 weeks was the strategy planning. Next 9 months is implementation of that. Full commercial rollout with multiple customers. Traction with real customers and revenue. Established revenue stream. Traction based extrapolated business plan for 5 years. Now you come 1 year. You can very clearly see where you stand. So you are able to see a little further and pitch for Series A or pre-Series A, depending on where you stand. The good part is in this entire process, there will be design thinking strategy that will help them build the MVP. The MVP will not be built based on, this thing. Again, there is a process there. Everything is process driven. If it is not process driven, then you are just, fishing in the dark. So here is an example. We did Logathon 1. This was done completely, to help people during the lockdown phase. We launched it on 13th of April during the first lockdown. 200 startup applied. 55 went through multiple round of screening. As I said, we have a very deep screening process. 25 selected. 400 hours of one-on-one mentoring we provided to them. They're all early stage idea-based company. Now imagine only 11 graduated. I said important is how many graduate. 45 investors attended the demo day, virtual demo day. And 8 of them walked up with a check. The total investment committed on one single day was 2.5 crores. And guess what? The rest of the companies, 3 companies, are now trying to do that over the last couple of months, and they will present to the customers again. And this is not the only one. We've done this time and again. KIT, we did cohort, it's called IM2, cohort 1, IM2, cohort 2, ITRA, ILF, Indian Institute of Udaipur, and Logathon 1. We have done 6, 4 are underway. So we have 10 programs, and result of these 10 programs is this. 101 startups have attended our programs, 55 have graduated, 37 have actually picked up the investor nod on the demo day itself. And they come from 25. So as I said, this is industry agnostic. And for that, we have created business partners, tech partners, investment partners, ecosystem partners. So we've created an entire ecosystem around it. Why? Because when we go and implement this program in your incubator or accelerator, you don't have to look out. You will keep riding on this partnership that we developed forever. So once the investors come to this thing, they understand what you do, they understand who you are, they understand what your capabilities are, and they come back again. So we create that ecosystem for us, but it is actually transitioning to you. And that transition happens because we transition the knowledge. People chase knowledge. People don't chase individuals, right? But there are some very good learnings. 60% of the startups complete the program. Customers don't agree. There are no ideas are perfect. There are 40% of them did not graduate because of the reason that their ideas did not resonate with the customers. Run out of money, right? Sir, I don't have money. If they do not have, so that's why I said there is a principle of what we call affordable loss. Principle of affordable loss is if you can't survive for 3 years on your own, forget about it. Go back and do a job. Too long to get to market. 3 years of product development. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. Today's world, the world moves on. If somebody was building something a year ago, what do you think his relevance will be today? Everything has changed. The customer behavior, the market, the funding, the investors, everything has changed. COVID has created a new normal now, and the new normal does not have anything to do with the old normal. It's a long journey. People need to have patience. It takes 3 years for pre-Series A, 5 to 6 years for Series A, and 8 to 10 years for Series B. This is my journey I'm talking about. This is what I did. And 12 to 15 years for Series C, secondary, if any. So there is nothing happening to you guys or me before 8 to 10 years. And if I'm going to be engaged for 8 to 10 years with a startup, just by giving this knowledge, what do you think I should expect back from him? He doesn't have money to pay me, and hence we charge equity, and so should you. They're going to need help, mentor. This is our engagement model. Very simple. Strategic collaboration. I mean, I'm expecting after this, ISBA is going to say, okay, let's have some kind of a memorandum of understanding. Bala, I'm hoping on that. And then boot up value, we will be provide with validation program, acceleration, and then connect them to the, sorry, this was the slide. That was not the slide. And this completes the 3, 4, 5 steps that you need to actually make sure that the startup survives. Our primary aim is to make sure startup survives. Survival rate has to go from current 10% to at least 40%. We are at 37%, we want to take it to 40%. And some point of time, a year later, will be 50%. This is the founding team, me, Rajat, Devendu, Sayed Safavi, all been entrepreneurs at some point of time in some other way, and have been there, and now happy to help startups and incubators, accelerators. This is my galaxy of stars, all friends who came from, corporate startup background, and there are many more. These are just the mentors. There's a group of, we call Friends of Paddock. There are about 75 people there. If I give you the list, you will be established, and most of them are investors. So these are not mentors, they're also investors. All of them have invested in startups. Not even single one of them you can say that they have not invested. Each one of them have invested in a startup. And there are at least another 40 of them outside, 40, 50 of them. Suggested business model. Mentoring equity should be prerequisite for participating in program. We should get mentoring equity. We would share with you. Of course, you need to have them, because how would you survive after 5 years? I don't know. You need to have some return on investment. And my hunch is that every 20 to 25 startups you accelerate every year, in 5 years, at least 5 of them will have I would say, expedited exit, either in terms of acqui-hire or some kind of exponential growth that they will see. In 5 years, you'll do 100, and out of that 100, at least 5 should have expedited, and that 2% equity you take will help you actually get your money back in many X. Engage in scalable. Engage with us. We will give you proven methodology, entrepreneurship education, 360-degree mentoring, and closely monitoring periodically. This is all coming with our partnership and engagement with you. The application process is open to all. Provision of seed funding, 25 lakhs in exchange of equity. That should be pre-arranged. It cannot be afterwards. Focus on small teams, not individual founders, right? Time limited support, 9 to 12 months. Boot up and rev up. These 2 programs should not extend beyond 12. Max 18. 18 primarily for the companies that are very, very deep tech. What time? Oh my God, I have taken more time. Cohorts and this thing, and that's it. I'm sorry I extended myself. Thank you so much. Questions? I'm ready for it.
Thank you, Pankaj, for this. I think participants can raise a hand or maybe type the questions in the questions window, if any. We will take it up directly from there.
Stop sharing first.
Mr. Pankaj, that was a very, very comprehensive explanation about your pad of ventures and also the general inputs for the incubation community. Quite informative. As we wait for the questions, I have one question. You also mentioned about partnering with incubators and extending your support in running the acceleration program. Could you touch upon a bit on this? What is the kind of model? Are you looking at individual incubators or as an association we could partner so that the members could take the benefit out of that? And,
Very good question, Bala. And I think this is the time when I personally feel there's a revolution that we can do together. For example, everything has gone virtual, right? I have also requested Mighty and I'm working with Dr. Garg to actually create a program through them. But here we can do it in this program. So the partnership with ISBA is can be every member can participate. They can recommend their startups. We can choose create a cohort for as big as 50 startups. And then our only request is what we do is we take equity from startups, not from the incubators, not from the accelerators, and we don't even charge incubator accelerators anything unless and until it has been funded by the government. So we take 5% equity, and that 5% equity will give the startups this entire 12 to 18 months mentorship and also beyond. You can see, the return of our effort will only come after maybe about 6 to 8 years, nothing before that. So we take that 5% equity from the startups and we provide this program. It's completely online. We can collaborate with each member, and we can prioritize their startups. So some startups need this like today. Some startup may need it after 6 months. So we can prioritize that, put up a large cohort, and go as an association. We can go together.
okay. I think I and Suresh will reach out to you offline and to continue this conversation.
Sure. Right. Absolutely. But I think this can revolutionize the entire ecosystem because not before this COVID, we could think about getting so many startups on a one platform together. Today we can do as large a cohort as 100, right? But 100 would be a little ambitious at this point of time. We'll do 50 maybe first, and then maybe go on to 100. So 50 startups getting into one cohort, getting validated in 3 months, and then actually going back to their incubators and pursuing this thing, and we helping them there it can change the way things happen in our country.
Thank you. I think there is one question from Abhi. So he says, very impressive to see acceleration scale up. Could you please share insights on acceleration team size and tools? Also, this is agnostic, but any domain specialization over the period. There are two questions.
The domain specialization is only that they should be technology startups. Non-technology startups need different kind of a treatment, which we are not the experts, and neither we developed that program. But for technology startups, I think this is the way. So that's the only thing. Otherwise, domain is not an issue. That you saw my mentor pool. Each one of them come from a very different background. One come from a healthcare startup, other is coming from construction, third is coming from Bharti Airtel, fourth is coming from. So they're all from different business domains, and hence we really want to cater to as many verticals as possible.
The other question from Abhi was on the acceleration team size. So do you have any prescription or reco on that?
So when he said team size, if he says the acceleration, the accelerators team size, we just need 1 or 2 people to coordinate with us. That's it.
So Suresh, would you like to?
No, I think one of the attendees raised their hand.
Yeah, but I think he got dropped in the middle. I'm trying to get him on stage, but he got dropped, I think. As soon as he joins, I think we can take the session. We can take his question, but he's not available right now.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, I think So there is a question from Kalbert. He's the Chief Executive Officer at Asia in TBI. The question is there any change in the number of years to reach pre-Series A based on sectors?
So Series B or Series A or Series C are typically based on the traction that you achieve. After Series B, C, D, E, F could be really fast, as we have seen in case of Baiju or Ola and all that. But till Series B, I think this is a normal trend. Of course, expedited. For example, in today's world, a lot of edtech companies are getting Series B really pre-poured because that's the need of the hour. Or health tech companies are getting, people who are working on COVID, they're getting very quick response from the investors. But that could be very, very, I would say, seasonal. It's not really the norm, but it could happen to a sector depending on the situation or the how the world is actually moving around.
Okay, good. I think one more question. So it is to us from Rohini Sharma, Senior Program Manager at FTBI NIT Roorkela. She has mentioned that we are from Tier 3 city. Partnership networking is a big issue for us. And I would request ISBA to have a database for us to connect to the investor and mentor pools. So I think it's expectations of the members to the association to work closely with people like you. So
sure. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I see for us, it's a mission. We've been running this for the company has been around for 5 years. We tried various models and finally we believe that the framework that we have put up actually is helping people. And that's where this thing, and now we are pushing with the government, with with both DST, MIT, BIRAC, anybody, and we are trying to really push them to up their scale, provide more grants to you so that you can then spend that money to actually help the startup. So, and it's working. It's working. It's slow, but it's working. Yesterday, we were at a seminar in MIT, and the MIT secretary was very clear in saying that at all costs we have to push the startup ecosystem to the best of its ability. So I think we are happy to connect with anybody and everybody. I'll share this presentation after this through Swamiji to you guys. You can share this with everybody, no issues at all. And it will have my coordinates and people can come back to me.
Okay.
If that is done, I would, because I have another one at 11:15.
Yeah.
I would like to have, I'm sorry I extended. I thought I'll keep 30 minutes for this thing, but it just went on and on. I didn't want to miss out this opportunity because this is a forum where I wanted to give more and more possible. So some of the things that, those 9 steps and everything, these are part of my CEO training program, which I thought best give it right now so that people can.
Same here. We don't want to miss you in this program. So that's the reason, right? We reached out to Soumya Jayat and we got connected. And thank you for accepting our invitation.
My pleasure.
And spending almost nearly 2 hours with us. And from ISBA, we look forward to the continuous relationship and engagement with Paddock Ventures. And whatever possible way you have to support the incubation movement. And because always we have people, members from new incubators to less than 3 to 5 years establishing incubators, and some of the matured incubators. And the incubation associations membership itself is dynamic. And every particular period of time, we feel that even association is incubating ourselves with new members coming in. And because of the new members, we always go back to our basic training programs. Right? Even if you have 10 members, again, we do what is incubation from basics, and it also gives an opportunity to sharpen our skills. So we look forward to continuous engagement with Paddock Ventures. And thank you very much for joining us and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you, Dr. Bala. Thank you, Dr. Suresh. We'll soon begin the next session in a couple of minutes.